There's blood spatter on the wheelie bin. Some more on the floor. I made a rhyme. In the kitchen, signs of a struggle. Our victim is bleeding. Bleeding awesome. You know when you've done a good job of things when there's blood everywhere before you've even had a chance to have a look. This is nothing serious. I suspect it may need a stitch or two, but who's got time for that? I haven't done myself any damage, real damage, outside of the usual kind of skinned knuckles and spatter burns for years, but I've been rushing because in the midst of a heat wave, I managed to be ill for a week. So this episode has been in jeopardy right from the get-go. I persevered though. I have managed to get a few bits and pieces done on both cars. So lest you accuse me of padding out the episode at waffle, what would you like first? The Cortina. Alright, Ford Cortina. She's looking well. Now, a few little issues. Logistical. I had bought the seal for this car before I did any work in it because I wanted to make sure I had it in hand. Turns out I bought one for a Mark IV. So I had a brainwave and I got in touch with our man in Lancashire, Chris Trickett, owner number 2 of the Esprit, who is a Ford dealer. And I knew he had a parts guy who had been there forever, and he has, 40 years or more. Anyway, they're on the case, so a seal will be found hopefully. In the meantime, I had to finish up the repair sections. So starting with the offside bottom corner of the windscreen. Now the idea here is not to have to use filler, and I've always secretly scoffed at anyone who did use filler, but I quickly realised that I was probably going to have to use a very thin skim of filler when I was done here, and I probably will, which is not something I'm looking forward to, but I have used fillers in the past, on composites though. We'll soon find out what the difference is. Now this patch didn't go in badly. I really would have liked the welds to be better. I have gotten to the point where I'm not going to start bitching about the welder anymore, but the slag that it produces really does make things awkward here. To get really clean welds is sometimes very, very difficult. You literally have to clean off the smoke, the kind of powder that it leaves behind it between each weld. Anyway, these 3 sections underneath the windscreen, they were difficult, especially the middle one because it was quite long, and to get it to follow the curve of this panel underneath the windscreen was really tough. I was hammering this, panel beating it for so long, back and forth to the vise and a little anvil, and just trying to get the shape right. I managed it. It's not perfect, but it's going to be a good enough platform for the window seal to work. Over on the near side, much the same. To be honest, this one probably didn't go as good as the other ones, but I haven't maybe grounded enough, we'll see. And that was the very last thing I was able to do for this episode. Trying to cut my finger off ate quite a bit of time. But I was glad just to have these done. It will mean I can go straight into trying to prep this, skim it with a fill and paint it the next day I get to work on the car. Actually, I've forgotten, there is a tiny bit of welding left to do along the top edges of these 2 repairs at the bottom of the windscreen. You can see where I have to shave it back a bit and just weld up the final gap. But we're not in bad shape at all, and this is a relief to have this done. So hopefully that windscreen seal lands soon, and we'll get the car back together and over to Rob. Now the line along the bottom of this windscreen isn't looking too bad at all. That was the Cortina for this time, short and sweet, and we're moving on. Alright, before we go into the Range Rover, some shout outs. The first is to Koen Broodhoofd, and I really hope I didn't murder that. I wasn't sure if it was Belgian or Dutch Koen, but Koen has a black 911 Targa, and I'm guessing mid to late 70s, I'm not sure, I'm just going by the bumpers. But Koen bought this thing sight unseen 10 years ago, and it came from New York, and I just love to imagine what kind of a cat might have driven this thing around New York in the late 70s. Very cool car. Koen's had the brake calipers rebuilt and I'm sure he's getting great use out of it in the summer sun. Cool, thanks a million for the photographs. Martin Scott has a 74 Clubman, Mini Clubman. I used to have one of these, a GT. Shouldn't have sold it. Anyway, Martin is coming to the end of an 8-year restoration, one that took him from Scotland to France, where he now lives, and he said it was single garages all the way, but he sent me a very excitable email asking for the Valet Pro kit, and I kind of thought the work looks amazing, and you know, you deserve something after 8 years work. So it's on its way to you, mate. I'm well aware. I hope it is hitting the road any day. I want to shout out to Leo Nolte. Leo we met in episode 10, the commentator from Mondello Park. Leo has gotten his hands on an Austin special and he's restoring it. And he went down the country a few days ago to pick up some parts from a fellow special owner who took him out in his car. And Leo sent me this little video, just, you know, behind the scenes, saying check this thing out, and I have to show it to you because I think this is the embodiment of a man in his element. Have a look. That just did it for me straight off the bat. Just out on the road, open air car, beautiful sunshine, and what a beautiful, look at this car, beautiful little thing, a credit to whoever built it. Have a look at Leo's video again, I just think it's a great thing. And speaking of picking up parts, I've been going all Del Boy on it. I went to pick up a bonnet for the Range Rover, the 2-door Range Rover, mind you, a while back. And when I got there, the guy had 3 pallets of series Land Rover parts. And he said, these are going in that skip over there if they're not gone by the morning. So if you want them, take them. And I did. I took a punt that I'd be able to turn them into a few quid. And I have. In the background, behind the scenes, the Dream Workshop fund is in full swing, not least because the CLK is gone. I sold it to a very nice gent in the south of Ireland in County Cork, a colonel in fact. So Colonel, well aware, I hope it treats you well, and it was very nice to meet you. Anyway, it is time to get into the Range Rover, so here it is. So, the Range Rover. If I led you to believe there was no more rust on this car, I might have been fooling myself as well as you. There was this little bit in the corner of this wheel well in the rear of the car. To be fair, all things considered, I probably should have just replaced this whole panel. But that was just a whole world of pain that I really didn't want to get into. And I don't begrudge myself making that decision. So anyway, I cut out this piece of rot, but I knew that the panel that I was going to have to let in here was going to be tricky to make. This bar you see coming down here, by the way, is a brace for a kind of extended wheel arch section that holds the mud flap, and it's completely rotten, but we have a sheet metal brake and I'm going to make new ones of these. So I'm very excited about that because it's a simple little panel, but it will be very rewarding to make. So this panel is a sandwich. It's the end of the rear inner wheel arch and the start of the boot floor panel. They sandwich together, and I was hoping that, kind of almost beyond all hope, that the wheel arch section of the panel was going to be okay, that I'd only have to replace the rear part of the sandwich, the bit that comes from the boot floor. But no, they were both rotten and I cut the whole lot out. I cut it out as neatly as possible so that I had a reference piece for the plates I was going to have to make up. With a plate roughly cut over to the sheet metal brake, and I was able to bend this. And this is still a joy to me, being able to have the resource to just go and make this thing very, very quickly and simply without any fuss. Now I know I've just crushed that bend I made, but I can straighten it up while it's clamped down here. And there's a little panel. Very, very cool. So much better than having lots of hammer marks in a panel that you've beaten into shape on the vise. Now just before we test fit this on the car, I need to let the 3 bolt holes into it that will hold on that panel that takes the mud flap. Onto the car. Seems close enough to me. That is a decent panel. We will move on. So before we go any further, I am going to clean around this hole, just so when we do go to weld, we're giving ourselves as good a chance as we can. The metal on this car is good where it's good. It's just not good where it's bad. So with that in place, tacked in, I was able to weld it. And hey presto, there is stiffness in this thing. It is good and solid, and we can move on to making the last section here for the floor, which has quite a little compound curve in it, as well as the little return for this sandwich of metal here. But let's just keep going. This one panel, by the way, took a while, almost a day and a half. Kind of beggars belief. It's the curve that was tricky, and I made 2 of them before I got it right, because I'd forgotten about the return for the sandwich. So you can see here the original piece I cut out, then the first attempt that I made, but it doesn't have that return down for the bolt holes. So there's the template, the new template in cardboard that does have enough meat left on it for that return section. And here's the piece cut on a virgin piece of steel. Okay, we mark it up roughly for the sheet metal brake, and over we go. I can't emphasize enough how good it is to have this machine. And you know, I built one that's 5 foot long, and it probably would be a much better job and would have been easier had I just made it 3 foot long or 2 foot long. So if you don't need to do sills, or if you don't have high aspirations like I do, then by all means make a smaller one. It will cost you less, it will take far less time, and it will be easier to achieve. But make one, because they're so good to have. Anyway, we're over to the vise now, because we've no chance of putting the kind of compound curve into this with the sheet metal brake. Now I'm just using a piece of scrap that I found lying around to try and hammer the shape into this, and it's never going to be very pretty, but if we can get an approximation of the shape, we'll be doing well. Over on the car, we're close, getting closer. With a bit more teasing and some fettling, this thing got quite good, and if I defocus it slightly, you can kind of see the overall shape here. The radius I've put into it is pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. The spare wheel won't mind. And I'm back on the vise for a tiny bit more fettling, and you can see with the original piece against it, it isn't half bad. And that is as far as I got. I was fatigued at this stage, and I didn't want to start welding this. It was late in the day too, so I left it, because I prefer to do a slow job well, then rush one and do it badly. But you can see underneath here, we're in pretty good shape. There's a slight difference, there's a slight upsweep here to the right hand side, to the inboard side of the car, but I think that's going to disappear. I hope it is when we sit this panel down, because it's still kind of sitting up too high. And there will be a certain amount of fettling this, getting the shape just right. Once I have it tacked in, I can actually tease it down to the right shape. Anyway, that's the Range Rover for now. There will be far more progress next time. All right, I muddled through this one. I don't mind saying this was the most skin of the teeth episode yet. I really felt like there was a kind of a ramp up in productivity the last time, now that the unit move is behind us and I'm here full time, able to get really stuck in. Just happened that the last couple of weeks were turned on their head, but I'm looking forward to a new rhythm and a new level of productivity to come. Now, new patron, Tom Leaney, mate, I'd be lost without you, thanks a million. And if you would like to help keep Soup going, there is a link in the description to Patreon. It is just a secure and easy way of kind of lending a little bit of support. And you can see me there behind the scenes too. Okay, until the next time, don't forget about the new social media. There are also links in the description, Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, where I'm being very diligent about posting every day. It's a new creative outlet, at least that's what I'm telling myself. I'll see you there, and until then, good luck.
And so, the question becomes, was this a homicide? Or was somebody feeling hungry?